Hi, is that Monte?
It is.
Monte, it's the internet calling.
Hi, Internet.
How's it going?
It's going okay.
Sweet. We are, yeah, we're in the middle of driving a big electric bus down a desert that doesn't really exist. And, yeah, we heard you might be interested in talking to us for a bit.
Sure. Anything to help break up the drive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
I can understand that.
yeah, we've been talking about you a little bit, but did you want to let our viewers know who you are?
Sure. I'm Monte Cook. I've been a tabletop game designer for over 20 years now. I've worked on a lot of different games, but probably best known for the work that I did on the third edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and now I'm back working with Dungeons and Dragons again and having a great time.
That's super awesome. Yeah, you have done like so many awesome dream jobs in the gaming industry over the years, and worked on so many cool things. Like I know you. There's a lot of big Planescape fans out there. You definitely did a lot of work for that. You were largely responsible for doing the Cthulhu D20 adaptation. And then,
That's right.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of fans in the room, and have had throughout Desert Bus of a lot of the Malhavic's press stuff as well.
Cool.
Yeah, a lot of good things said about Tallis in the room as well. So that's super awesome, and we're super pleased to have you call in. And you know basically what we're doing at this point?
I think I have a general idea.
Okay, because it's basically the same hour in and hour out. There's a big desert. It's long. We're driving in it. Morgan, do you have any way that you could describe what your experience has been over the last 14 hours or so?
The pinnacle of excitement. It has been riveting. I've been on the edge of my seat virtually nonstop.
Yeah.
The excitement is almost unbearable. Staying awake is a challenge.
We just got an achievement for
Right.
many Bothan spies. I don't know what that
Killed
was
75 Bothan spies.
Sweet.
for.
So proud of ourselves.
So Monty, we've got some questions for you from our community. If you'd be interested in
Okay.
chatting for a bit, that would be super awesome.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, like at this point, there's some things. You are basically, are you actually going back to work for Wizards now in an actual day job capacity, or are you just freelancing for them at this point?
At the moment, I am a contractor with them.
Mhm.
I have kind of a, I guess you would, I mean, technically I'm a designer. You would almost, I guess, maybe call it kind of a consulting position at the moment.
Gotcha. And because I mean, there's people asking things like about possible Iron Heroes 2, but I mean that was a project that you worked on with Mike Merles, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Published that through Malhavik. We actually sold the rights to Iron Heroes, and there's another company based in Australia that owns Iron Heroes now. So if there's going to be Iron Heroes 2, it would come from them, not from me.
Gotcha. But they haven't really said anything about that yet, to your knowledge.
No, I'm way out of the loop. I'm 3 loops removed from that now, so I don't know.
Yeah, no worries. People asking for your thoughts on Pathfinder, especially as compared to 3rd edition and 3.5. So sort of the evolution of 3rd edition.
Right. Well, you know, the whole experience has been really interesting. I worked actually as sort of a consultant on Pathfinder as well, and you know, it's a very, there's a lot of things in Pathfinder that are a very natural evolution from 3.5 D&D. I mean, obviously, I shouldn't be saying that, right? Because it's not D&D, it's D20. But let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
And so that's very interesting. It definitely is an evolutionary path that you can kind of follow from. Well, really, if you're an old school player, you remember back in second edition days there were these books called the Player's Option books.
Yeah.
And they were kind of, some people might have called them like 2.5, if we had used a term like that back in the day. And you can kind of actually trace the whole evolutionary path from the Player's Option to third edition to 3.5 to Pathfinder in kind of an interesting way. There's sort of a growing level of both complexity and character options that kind of go, if you're going to draw a chart, if you're going to draw a graph, and kind of those two things kind of follow along in the development of all those games. So yeah, I kind of get off on game history and following those kind of things. I've been writing about that on the Wizards website in a column called Legends and Lore, kind of tracing the path of the game. And yeah, Pathfinder sort of represents an interesting sort of evolutionary offshoot.
Yeah.
I guess it's, you've got kind of a Neanderthal crow's neck and thing going on now with D&D, I guess.
Well, it's super cool, and yeah, you, as you were saying, you consulted on Pathfinder as well, right? Was that basically your role?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep. Basically, my role, for the most part, in Pathfinder was, as Jason Bowman, who was the designer of Pathfinder, went through the rules, the D20 rules, he would call me up and he would say, "Why did you do this?" Or "What's the math behind this chart?" or whatever, and we would chat about it for a while. Or he would bounce ideas off of me, and I would tell him, well, we thought about doing it that way, but we didn't, and here's why, and that kind of thing.
So this is basically sort of reflecting on your time in designing the initial game. Can you paint sort of a picture for us of like when third edition was being worked on? What was your role in that? What how did that work?
Sure. Well, in 1997, TSR was acquired by Wizards of the Coast, and it was the president of the company, Peter Rockinson, was a huge D&D fan, and so he immediately kind of tasked those of us who were working, because I worked at TSR and came to Wizards of the Coast when the fallout happened, and he tasked us with the creation of a new edition. And so they gathered together a few of us and basically just gave us, carte blanche and said, what do you want to do? And it was one of those interesting situations where you're kind of given so much leeway that at first you don't really kind of realize it, So we started kind of doing this very sort of mild edition change from second edition. And it was really initially Peter who said, no, let's really go all the way. Let's really make this the best game we can. And at that time, it was myself and Skip Williams and Rich Baker. And about that time, Jonathan Tweet joined the team. And I had a lot of really great and interesting ideas. And so it just grew from there. And the development process was just shy of 3 years long. And it was just kind of a day-to-day kind of thing where we, the designers would all gather in a room and say, okay, so today we're going to talk about, 5th level wizard spells. And that would be the topic for today. We met all day long and talk about D&D. So pretty good job to have. Pretty fun way to make money and spend your days. And then at the end, when it came time to actually write the books, The primary designers, Jonathan, Skip, and I, each kind of took one of the 3 core books and championed and sort of led the way, although all 3 of us really worked on the whole system in all 3 books. But, I was sort of the lead on the Dungeon Master's Guide, Jonathan was lead on Player's Handbook, Skip was lead on Monster Manual.
Sweet. We've actually got some people asking, like what kind of advice would you give to a new GM? If you could give them like one piece of advice, just one thing to remember always, what would that be?
It would probably be to just do, and this sounds easy, but it's actually really hard. To just do whatever is fun. Don't worry about getting all the rules right. Don't worry about anything, but just making things fun. And even if the choice to make things fun means breaking the rules or not going along with the original idea that you had for the storyline or the plot of the adventure or whatever, when you're sitting at the table, if the players are going to have more fun doing it a different way, different than you had planned, or different than what the rules say, or different than what the adventure module that you're using says, don't worry about it. Just do what's fun.
Sweet.
Now, Jeremy is a huge fan, and he's been feeding you soft questions. I'm here to switch it up a bit, hit you with some tough stuff. What do you think of erotic Star Trek fan fiction?
I think it has its place, I'm sure. I don't have a lot of knowledge about it, but I'm sure it's great.
So you say.
Well, I do have many pseudonyms.
There was another question, like, what do you see as do you see any possibilities for revising Talus for use in other game systems besides D&D 3.5?
I don't, actually. And the reason is that Talus is kind of a one-of-a-kind sort of product. It's so big, so deluxe, that any kind of undertaking to convert it to a different game or to try to, convert it and then publish it with different rules set, it's just the costs would be so prohibitive you'd never recoup those costs. The only way that a book like Talus, which is such an expensive book to produce, printing a book like that is just crazy. The only way that could have worked was to release it under a rule set that was hugely popular, right? And so at the time, there was just simply one game that was hugely popular, D&D 3rd edition, 3.5, and so Talus made sense. Producing Talus for pretty much any other rules system doesn't make a lot of sense. It just would be too much work.
Makes sense.
It's almost like taking, all of the Forgotten Realms and converting it to some other game system. Not just like the core, the core book, but like the whole line.
Yes, you would have to do something like change the way magic worked with a big plague or something.
Yeah, exactly.
If you were to make a 3D D&D, D and D and D, what would the third D be?
I think it would be a requirement that everyone wear funny hats.
Nice. Are you watching the feed? Like, do you have a visual on us right now?
I don't. I'm actually kind of commiserating with you because I am on the road at the moment, not actually driving, but I am making my way cross country, and so I am actually just sitting here in a Starbucks talking to you.
Nice. Someone else asks, okay, well, first of all, do you have familiarity with My Little Pony at all?
I know what My Little Pony is.
How about the new sort of resurgence of My Little Pony in Friendship is Magic?
I have heard of that, yes.
Okay.
That's not a yes.
because there's a My Little Pony related deific figure called Celestia, and people are asking about domains, and so there was a question there, but I don't know if that's something that you feel you have enough information to answer.
I don't think I do, I'm afraid.
Unfortunate. Okay, another interesting one.
That was quite the question dodge, by the way.
That's true. If Monte doesn't want to admit to being a brony, he doesn't have to. That's true. Another interesting question is just how do you think that like recent indie RPGs, so like Dogs in the Vineyard, Fiasco, Dread, etc., have had an influence on mainstream RPGs like D&D?
That's a really good question. That is actually something that, from a professional standpoint, that's a question I'm trying to answer. It is very, very interesting to look at a lot of the indie RPGs, and I think a lot of them are really brilliant. I just met Jason Morningstar at Dragon Con this year and really enjoyed chatting with him. But the thing is that it is also kind of dangerous to think about that kind of design too much because I think there are interesting lessons to be learned, but just because as a game designer I have familiarity with those games and my game designer friends have familiarity with those games, and some small percentage, some very small, very vocal percentage of people online have familiarity with those games. When you're talking about the D&D audience, it's this vast group of people who aren't on role-playing game message boards every day and aren't kind of as steeped in the broad range of games and the types of game design. And so I think it would be dangerous to try to take a mainstream, and I use that term very loosely, game like D&D and try to take it, too far down that path. So it's a real balancing act.
There's actually another question which is almost sort of the opposite. The person wants to know about Monte Cook's World of Darkness, which always it does seem like a bit of a strange gig, and just wants to know like how did that come about?
Well, it was one of those. It was kind of a movie moment. Because at the time, I was kind of backing away from game design and working on some different things. I wrote a nonfiction book about conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and I was kind of doing some other kinds of work. And White Wolf basically came to me and said, if we just gave you the World of Darkness and you could do whatever you wanted with it, what would you do? And, when somebody asks a really cool question like that, well, you stop and you pay attention, and so it's kind of like, every time I get out, they keep dragging me back in kind of moment. They had originally had the idea, and maybe still do, of having sort of different takes on the World of Darkness, if you're familiar with comics, kind of like an Elseworlds kind of approach, or Marvel Ultimate line, where it's the same thing but different, and that's what Monte Cook's World of Darkness is a different look on the same kind of ideas. And so, like, for example, the sort of the hook that I came up with was the World of Darkness as it existed was this really ancient thing steeped in history. And, if you were going to play a vampire, you kind of had to read tons and tons of material to know what the past of your clan was and all this stuff. And I thought, well, what if vampires and werewolves and whatnot, what if they just showed up? What if everything was brand new? What would happen then? What would the world of darkness look like? How would it be different? And plus, I threw in kind of a post-apocalyptic kind of feel just for fun because I like that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it did seem like a cool concept. I have one more question for you, and then we're gonna let you go. We're super happy that you were able to call in this morning and chat with us because, yeah, definitely a lot of RPG fans in our viewership and whatnot. Also, I just wanted to let you know that Dungeons and Dragons in Delaware seems to have gained a lot of popularity in our chat.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, just in case you were thinking of adding a third D at some point, you could bend the ear of someone at Wizards. That could be a way to go.
I was thinking actually that maybe one of the first things that I did if I did end up working there full time was I would change it to Dungeons and or Dragons.
Oh.
I think that's a good idea.
So get rid of the ampersand and sort of toss in some options.
Right. Exactly. Give it a little more freedom.
Excellent. Okay, so the one last question I have for you is that we are collecting facts from everyone that we talk to. We have a challenge, and someone is a good friend of ours who's been with us for many years has offered to donate $5 for every fact that we can collect from the people we talk to. One fact per person. So, do you have an interesting fact you can give us to add to our collection? It could be anything.
No pressure, but this is really where you sink or swim.
There was a time, I probably can't do it now, but there was a time when I could recite all the dialogue from the movie Ghostbusters from beginning to end.
Wow. That is super awesome. Actually, we've got our another friend of ours, Mikey Newman, who's one of the guys at one of the guys who worked on Borderlands with Gearbox. He's also a huge Ghostbusters fan and regularly talks about it. I think he might be in that camp with you too, along with Bill, who is not able to make it, but played some Call of Cthulhu with you at a con once. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So thanks so much for giving us a call, Monte, and joining us on our road to charity.
Yeah, well, good luck.
Yeah, James.
I hope you don't crash.
Yeah, well, we've already crashed a few times, but we're gonna keep going, and that's the important thing.
I just wanted to quickly say, Liz Smith says hi, Monty.
Oh, well, great. Tell Liz hello.
She is currently recuperating after a long night of busing, so.
And is also responsible for this call-in, so
yeah.
Everybody thank her and Monty for calling in.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Monty.
Sure, thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Liz is awesome, so tell her that too.
And when you get to Wizards, Mike Merles has tried to call in now a couple of years in a row and never been able to swing it. So you can rub that in his face a bit.
I will. And anything I can do to rub something in his face, I'll take. So that's great.
Excellent. All right, thanks a lot, Monty, and we will hopefully talk to you real soon.
Okay, thanks.
Hooray!
Yay!
I like that fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monty Cook can recite the entirety of
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah.